Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov from New York City. I just had a very, very beautiful but sad experience. I was in the elevator leaving my hotel, and I walked on to the elevator from my floor, and there were three people on the elevator, a woman and two men, all young. They all looked like they were in their 20s. And when I came on, the girl smiled at me, like she was happy to see me. And I smiled, nodded back. The other two gentlemen were just doing their morning routine. And when the elevator opened on the ground floor, everyone walked out. And the girl, after the men walked out, looks at me and says, "I'm Jewish." And she pulls out her necklace with her Star of David from underneath her shirt. And she said, "I didn't want to say it in front of them." And I started talking to her. She's a 26-year-old girl from London. She's visiting New York City on her birthday. And she was so excited to see me and said, "What's your name?" And it was just two Jews connecting. And that was beautiful. But the sad part was that she felt she had to wait till she got out of the elevator because she didn't want to say it in front of them. And she had to pull her necklace out from underneath her shirt. And this is the climate, the situation we find ourselves in, and how Jews feel, especially after Mamdani's win here in New York City. But this week's Torah portion talks about the final test that God gave Abraham. And the opening word is that Elokim Nisa et Abraham. God tested Abraham with the binding of Isaac. Now, rabbis say that Abraham was tested 10 times. And here our rabbis talk about the idea of God testing us. And they point that the word Nisa has three meanings. First of all, it means testing. God often tests us to see our character, to see our resolve, our faith. But what is the deeper meaning of a test? So Nisa is from the word nes, miracle. You see, a miracle is something supernatural, above and beyond the ordinary. And sometimes for extraordinary things to happen, for miraculous things to happen, for supernatural things to happen in our lives, we have to be tested to bring out our miraculous, supernatural capabilities, to break through the natural patterns. And finally, the word Nisa also comes from the word banner. We say in Adon Olam, God is my banner. The idea of a banner is something that's raised up high for everyone to see. And sometimes God uses us to become banners. He raises us up. And by testing us, He elevates us to a higher level than we could have achieved, so everyone can see and be inspired by our example. And clearly we're being tested as a Jewish people, but we have to transform the test into something that will bring out our supernatural strengths and raise us up and elevate us even higher for the world to see who we are. You know, one of the hostages who came back was Bar Cooperstein. And there was a horrible video on October 7th when he was captured, where he was laying on the floor. He was a brave former soldier who was working at the Nova Festival, and he was working there to support his father who had a stroke, and he was bringing an income for the family. And when the terrorists came, instead of fleeing, he went back and forth, bringing out people, saving people, treating people. And then he was captured by the terrorists, and there was a video of him lying on the floor, bound, with his hands bound behind his back, with his face on the ground, bleeding, injured, and the terrorists were standing around him with their rifles. And this video was haunting, and everyone saw it for 2 years until he came back from captivity. And when he was asked what was happening, what was the conversation when you were lying on the floor, and he said the terrorists were questioning him, interrogating him. "Are you a soldier?" And he said, "No, I was exempt from the army because of my father's health condition." He of course lied to them and confused them, because if he was a soldier, they would treat him much worse. And then at one point, he said, the terrorist, pointing the rifle at his head, started to mock him and said, "Where is your God now? Where is your God?" And he said, I started to think, yeah, he's right, where is my God? And he said, my mind started racing into these thoughts. And then I said to myself, my mother is not here. His mother, Julie, is an extraordinary woman, a religious woman. He said, my mother's not here, but what would she say if she was asked this question? What would she tell me? And then he heard his mother's voice in his mind saying, God is testing you. And once he got that answer from his mother, as he was lying there beaten and bleeding and bound, and taunted. He said, when I heard those words, that my mother would tell me you were being tested, it gave me inner strength to be able to persevere and prevail. That's what we need to have. We need to have strength. And that strength knows that everything that's happening is for a higher purpose. And God willing, this will bring out more strength, more resilience, more courage, more love, more unity of the Jewish people, and raise us up to even higher levels. NYC, God is my banner, Umanos li, and my fortress. Hashem li, God is with me. Velo ira, I will not fear. Have a wonderful day.